If there is one place Americans should feel safe after 9/11, it should be here at Washington's Ronald Reagan Airport. Certainly any attempt to take over the plane would be thwarted by federal air marshals. But that is only if federal air marshals are on board. CNN is being told by air marshals themselves that on 99 flights out of 100, they're not.
If I would say 1%, less than 1%, would I be far from the mark?
I don't think so. I don't think you'd be far from the mark.
These two federal air marshals told us on camera what at least a dozen of their colleagues and pilots have told CNN off camera. Afraid to be identified for fear of retribution, they say the Department of Homeland Security hides behind national security laws because making the facts public would be a PR disaster.
Are the numbers classified because the numbers are embarrassing?
I would be very embarrassed by them if they were to get out.
Keeping them honest, we spoke directly with numerous air marshals. They all tell us about 1% of the 28,000 flights that take off or land in the U.S. each day are protected. One pilot who crisscrosses the U.S. and flies internationally says he hasn't seen an air marshal on board in 6 months. A federal law enforcement officer who travels to Washington every week says he can go months without seeing a marshal. And another pilot who wanted to protect his identity because he carries a weapon on flights flies in and out of New York's airports and says the marshals are almost non-existent.
Having to guess, without a doubt, it's fewer than 1% of all my flights.
The Transportation Security Administration, the TSA, runs the Air Marshal Service, which has refused an on-camera interview. Assistant Special Agent Greg Alter wrote to us that the figures we've been given are incorrect. Alter won't divulge his figures, but says, while the exact number of flights that air marshals protect is classified because we don't want terrorists to play a mathematical guessing game based on percentages, the actual number of flights that air marshals cover is thousands per day. This represents exponentially more than 1% and is well into double digits. And adds the Federal Air Marshal Service employs an intelligence-driven and risk-based approach to covering flights. Covering flights is a deliberate choice of words, we're told. Air marshals tell us the administration internally says at least 5% of flights are covered. A spokesman for the Air Marshal Service says when the service says a flight is covered, it means a federal air marshal is on the plane. But the federal air marshals themselves and armed pilots say that's not exactly the whole story.
It specifically told us that we're a covered flight when there's an trained armed person in the plane, and that's a covered flight.
Even if that person is not an actual air marshal, but some other kind of law enforcement officer who could even be on vacation. As for any claim 5% of flights are covered, Dave Mackett with the Airline Pilot Security Alliance just doesn't believe it.
We are not seeing anywhere near the coverage that they are asserting they have. I think they're whistling past the graveyard, hoping against hope that this house of cards that they call airline security doesn't come crashing down around them.
What's happening here? We're told federal air marshals are leaving in droves, some for better jobs, and they're not being replaced. The TSA says the number leaving has remained a constant 6.5% a year since 2001. And numerous sources are telling CNN so many federal air marshals have transferred to other jobs or left the service that staffing at field offices has nearly been cut in half. For instance, Las Vegas, which had as many as 245 federal air marshals, checked in last month with only 47. This year, the TSA is advertising to hire 50 new federal air marshals.